I have I have handed over the PDFs to Madam. I don't know if she has.
Yes, sir. Got it, sir.
Okay.
Got it, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone remembers what was the last slide? Yesterday.
Sir, insolvency and bankruptcy.
Good. Good. So we'll start with that. Okay. Just wait a minute. But तुम्हें आवजे नहीं हैं? अश्विन ना ना बस तुम्हें खाली आवजे दे दो Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And insolvency and this bankruptcy code came in 2016. So was there anything before that? There were various laws before that to look into how to handle a situation when a company goes sick or NPA becomes unviable. The current management cannot operate that, or it makes loss beyond anybody's control, and it seems to be failing economically. So,
Sir, hello, good evening, sir. Sir, Varsha from this side. Sir, before you start, I just want to ask a question of our assignment. Can I ask?
Okay, you can ask.
Sir, there is a question question number 4. Organizations should set its goal towards creation of absolute value to the society. Explain this statement by elaborating on the key aspects that a company should focus as a good corporate citizen. Which units, this question belongs to which unit?
Unit 5. We will
Okay.
come.
Thank you.
Corporate citizenship comes under CSR. Okay, some people are naming it as corporate citizens in developed countries. So,
Okay.
and whenever somebody says true value, total value, see, only business is generally for profit making. That should be the also motive, because without profit there is no point in having a business. So for profit making, that is the prime and most should be, because otherwise why should we somebody do business? Agriculture, we can't say that it is a profit making thing, but it has to be. Otherwise, most of the farmers are living agriculture because there is no profit, they cannot sustain. So similarly, a business has to sustain itself. So whenever you see something like true value and all that, you should be sure that it is regarding CSR and other things, or how the corporate responsibility. We have read something like a corporate responsibility report yesterday, that guideline, how to report that. So that is all part of those things.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
So in 1985, there was a law, Sikh Industrial Companies Act, then Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. Here, wherever there was some listed entities or there was some bonds or securities issued by the company, how to get into reconstruction of that or how to make the company viable again. So all that, because basically, have I told you about Baiju's case? Some days back, Baiju became defaulted in payments of its loan. And it now seems that Baiju has been mismanaging its finances for 1 or 2 years. Their last balance sheet, which was published, was 2020-21. 21-22, they have not published. 22-23, it is not yet time, but they should be. So, and somehow they have survived without publishing that the ROC or even the anyone. Nobody has taken note of that, and things have gone wrong. So now Baiju, such a big company, which was hiring Shahrukh Khan for promotion and all, even Messi for promotion and all, was promoting matches and all, it is now going into loss. Now, so that doesn't mean all their sponsorship or whatever expenses they have done are useless, because they should have, their business was to get into online education and other offline education. So they have mismanaged things, rather you can say, or they have taken loan which they could not service. So it means they have tried to expand or invest in assets and in business, which was more beyond that. Or there may be also issues like ciphering that amount of money which was taken for building the business into personal gains, and that may have caused these all these problems. Then there was another law, the Recovery of Debt Due to Banks and Financial Institution Act 1993. This act is still there because there are corporate loaners and there are also individual loaners. So actually there is a tendency in India by people, generally they do not think that the loans from banks are to be returned, and banks were facing a lot of problem in getting that loan. So this loan has been made, this law has been made more effective, and the banks have been given power to enforce. Then the last one is Companies Act. This also takes care of solution to insolvency. It also provides that it can, how a company which is facing insolvency can be treated, or what the ROC or SEBI can do to see if or stop a company from doing wrong things to become sick. Now, why this IBR code is part of corporate governance? Now, people are investing in companies, and the companies don't operate well. They go sick, they become insolvent. Then who is losing that money? And overall, if you see, all the loss of money is basically by public. It is a loss of public wealth. Money from bank, money from individual, whatever is that, all that is loss of public wealth. So even bank money is your money or public's money. It is bank doesn't created assets somewhere from else. It started with government support and all, or even private banks, they have started with somebody's money. So if a company is taking loan and becoming sick, then if the bank is getting affected, then it is very much likely that the economy will be affected in a great way. So to protect wrongdoing of or misuse of fund is part of CV. But suppose something happens and the company goes wrong, it goes becomes an NPA, then there must be a way to make it solve that issue as quickly as possible. Earlier, what was happening is that BIFR, Bureau of Financial Reconstruction or something like that. That was the one bureau was there under Sikh Industrial Companies Act. BIFR was a company, wherever a company going sick, it will be referred to BIFR, and BIFR will sit down with the company, restructure things. All that was done. And, but what happened in those times under BIFR, most of the time what was happening is the loans were only getting restructured, but nothing fruitful was coming out of that. So companies were becoming sick. The BIFR is Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. Companies were becoming sick, and they were unable to revive them properly. They were only granting some extension of loan. They were restructuring the loan, allowing new loan to be taken. And the company again would do the same thing, and this new loan also would become a it's going to become a waste. So that is how BIFR was doing, and BIFR was not successful in handling NPA cases very effectively. And BIFR, after coming off IBR 2016, BIFR is discontinued. It is no more there. So that bureau is stopped. Now, what is the IBR code? This provision of code can apply any
Hello,
company.
sir. I have some doubts, sir.
Please.
Sir, please elaborate Surface Act 2022.
What act?
Surface Act. Surface Act.
What is the need to elaborate now? Have we completed IBR?
No, sir. I have some doubts. That's why, sir.
But we have to finish the course. That also you
Okay,
should
sir.
answer.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
You can't bring in something which is not related now. But what is that act you are saying? Please, can you clearly pronounce it?
Sir, I am abbreviating it. Surface Act, no? So that's why, sir.
Which act?
Security Asset Surface Act. Central Register of Securitization Asset Reconstruction and Security Interest. Surface Act. So before that, you did. Then in previous slide.
You are saying this 2002 act, you wanted to know about that. Okay. So we will come to that. But you know this that act is also now is covered by this IBR code. Like as I said, BIFR, all these SIC Industrial Code of Companies Act has gone, securitization and reconstruction of financial assets and enforcement of security interest, all that is gone. Because, you know, if you have multiple acts, then the process of solving the case was becoming difficult because various acts had various provisions. So IBR has superseded all this, but don't confuse that the Companies Act has been superseded by IBR code. No, Companies Act stands, but all three which were related where laws dealing with SIC industry have been discontinued. As I said, BIFR also has been discontinued. So you are saying only the acronym. So that is why I got confused.
Okay, sir.
Please don't talk among yourself. Then any company incorporated under the Companies Act 2013 or under any previous company law can be referred to, can be considered under IBR code. Any other company governed by any special act for the time being in force, except so far as the said provisions are inconsistent with the provision of such special act. Any company like, suppose there are company, ONGC is a company which has been formulated by Government of India under a act. It is not registered under ROC, though it operates like a company, but it is by a special act of Parliament. So there are certain also other organizations. So those organizations can come under IBR code unless in those act it is very specifically mentioned that insolvency or liquidation of that will be handled differently other than IBR code or the laid down procedure. So if there is any exception, then they will be treated differently. Otherwise, anywhere there is no special mention about how to deal with insolvency of a company, they will be handled through IBR Act. So IBR has been made as a omnibus law. Any limited liability partnership LLP incorporated under the Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008 or 2009 modification and all. So these companies can come under IBR. Such other body incorporated under any law for the time being in force as the central government may by notification specify in this behalf. It keeps a open part. Suppose tomorrow some other organization which also needs for reconstruction comes in and it is not covered under 2016 Act, then government can issue another ordinance or modify the Act and also do for that. Personal guarantors to corporate debtors. Personal guarantors to corporate debtors. What is a guarantor to a debtor? Have you, any one of you have taken any housing loan?
Have taken, sir.
Then there you will find that in your application, somebody has to sign as a
Yes, sir,
guarantor.
as a guarantor.
And what what is the role of the guarantor?
The role of really on behalf of me, he has just given a guarantor. If there will be defaulter by me for paying that EMI, then they'll, I mean, bank will be contact that person.
Suppose you don't repay, then the company can
Exactly.
ask the
Contact.
guarantor to pay.
Yeah, right,
So
sir.
suppose for
Sir, and
some
also, guarantor plays their own asset as collateral against the loan.
then otherwise how they see, that is not as collateral when they sign the guarantor clause.
Okay,
They
sir.
don't give any collateral at that point of time. But suppose
Mhm.
the guarantor has to pay and he doesn't have sufficient money, then he automatically he has to liquidate some of his assets and then pay, because he is
Okay,
taking he is giving an undertaking to the loanee, the company or the organization which is giving a loan, that in case this fellow fails to repay, I will pay. It means
I will pay.
Yes,
the
sir.
company is not bothered how he will pay. Company is only taking a guarantee that he will pay. But no collateral is taken at that point of time. Collateral
Okay,
of
sir.
that, the loanee is taken, the debtor is taken, not the person who is
Debtor.
giving a debt. Now, there are people who can guarantee even a corporate debtors. A corporate is taking a loan, and suppose one of its promoter or who is a chairman or something like that, he can take a guarantee because he is a big man, so he can take a guarantee. It's like Mukesh Ambani can take guarantee for someone of some company of his, because his personal assets are also quite high. So in that case, if there is something wrong with this loan and all, and this loan is not repaid, then IBR can also affect the personal guarantors. Like someone was asking, no, that whether collateral is given. Collateral is not given, but his assets can be utilized to resolve this debt. So that also, this type of cases can also come under IBR 2016. Partnership firms and proprietorship firms can also come under IBR. Individuals or other than persons referred to in clause E. Some individuals who are, it's like proprietorship things.
Sir, what is proprietorship firms?
Only one person is owner of the company.
Okay, sir.
He is a proprietor, promoter, and what. So individual means again proprietorship, but suppose there are cases where there is a guarantor. But it's a very peculiar case. In suppose some case, individual is a guarantor or individual is somehow involved in the loan, and then whatever he was doing for that, it may not be a proper business. So, but he was doing something with that money, and if something goes wrong, then that case where other people are affected, IBR can also be applicable there.
Sir, though we have Partnership Act 1932, but partnership also comes under IBR.
A company which is running as a partnership act for something else is different, but a company which is registered as a partnership firm will come under IBR.
Okay, sir.
The code has created several new institutions, all of which have specialized role in the insolvency resolution process. This new law has created one Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. The IBBI has the added responsibility to facilitate the functionality of the code by studying practical implications and framing rules and regulations to overcome any difficulty or hurdle. Actually, when an act is parliament, next step is rule. The act has brought of the act will be applied on the ground, that will need a rule. So that rule has to be formulated. So IBBI is empowered to formulate the rules depending on the workability of the provisions. Suppose while implementing the provision, something is found that this is really in particular case, this may not be possible. So what can be, how the rule can be modified and it can be made simpler or whatever, that IBBI is empowered to decide. So you can say IBBI is the overseeing agency created by the law. The code envisages the creation of a cadre of professional, actually resolution professional. I don't know if any one of you has become a resolution professional, but there are people like chartered accountant, engineers, and even financial analysts, people, many of them have now become resolution professional. It is like getting certified, like a chartered accountant or company secretary who deal with how to become a resolution professional. They are certified and they can be appointed for any IBR proceedings. The code also insolvency professional. The code has also established an insolvency professional agencies, which are professional bodies that will regulate, like the ICSI and ICFI, this Financial Chartered Accountants Institute and the Company Secretary Institute. Something like that also has been formed, insolvency professional agency who certifies or regulate the certification of RP. RPs are required to enroll with insolvency professional agencies set under the code. These agencies certify professionals, conduct examination, and lay out a code of conduct. The code establishment of utilities. These information utilities are companies who have the information regarding all the companies, or specifically the company which is now coming under IBR or being referred to being MPA. Now, suppose a company is running well and then it becomes sick. So if this information utility does not have information prior to what was the company becoming sick, then there is no point. So information utilities try to gather information on companies who have taken loan, and also they are also in process of seeing how the company is performing. So information agency can supply these information while the resolution process is in place. Or this information agency can also help the bidder. Now, when the resolution professional takes over, there is a bidding done for acquiring the sick company by someone else. Now, in that time, the person who is bidding needs all information about the company whom he or she is trying to take over. Now, all that information is available in these information utilities. Government of India has created one utility, and there can be private utility depending on approval of the IBBI. It is optional for operational creditors. This information has to be given from this, like, banks are giving loan or somebody else is giving loan to a particular company. They have to supply that information to this information utilities. But in an organization, there are operational creditors also, or the persons who are involved in day-to-day operation of the company, like suppliers or some basically suppliers or contractors and all, those who have some stake in the company in the way that they are doing work, but they are yet to be paid, or some of their money is still lying in the company. So in a way, they are also creditors. But the operational creditors may not give all the information to the information utilities because it all depends on them. So they have been made free. They have an option of giving or not giving. The records with the utilities can be used as evidence in the initiation of insolvency resolution procedure and can assist various stakeholders in arriving at an ideal resolution of distressed companies. National E-Governance Services, NESL, a government entity, has become the first information utility after receiving the required approvals from IBBI. Now, next institution under IBR is NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. This is the deciding, adjudicating authority, and no other court can stop the IBR provision or implementation than NCLT. Smaller courts are not allowed. Suppose NCLT gives an order, then first and foremost you have to go to Appellate Tribunal, NCLAT, National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. This is above NCLT. So you can approach NCLAT. Now, if you are not happy with the results of NCLAT, then only you can approach Supreme Court. You cannot go to any smaller court in India for IBR related matters. So that is why this process is little expeditious. Otherwise, what was happening earlier, smaller courts were intervening and things were getting delayed. So NCLT has been given legal power to deal with all the matters relating to IBR. You must have heard about Lokpal, Lokayukt. these are the agencies who can dispose of small matters like Lok Adalat. They have separate powers. They can dispose smaller things very quickly. Now, in IBR Act 2006, this Limitation Act 1963 is now applicable. Now, what is Limitation Act? You know, there is a time limit. Suppose somebody has done something and no action is taken against him for over a long period of time. Now, you cannot just initiate, because suppose you find that something has been done wrong and after 5 years, 4 years or 10 years, you want to take action. That is generally not possible. This Limitation Act provides a time limit for initiating any action against a person for some act he has done. Generally, in government services, if you have retired 4 years earlier, then you are more or less safe from any case being initiated against you. But it is not a blanket safety. But generally, nothing can be initiated. But suppose a case has been initiated, nothing has happened, or a case was initiated sometime during your or 1 year or 2 years after your retirement, where you were not a party at that point of time, but somehow during the investigation of the case, something comes out and you are involved. Then in that case, even if your involvement comes out after 4 years, there is a possibility that you can be dragged into that, because this case was operating at the time when you retire. But there are specific instances. Otherwise, this Limitation Act 1963 applied. Now, what government did after this resolution code was put in place, that there were certain cases, people started referring old cases to IBR also. So government stopped that. So you can't just bring in any case which has been sick for some time long back, and no, you can't do that. So that is why. So time-barred claims are outside the purview of the court. So old cases just can't be reopened. Whatever has been done, done. You can't review and delay other things, new cases. There are 2-stage processes. Corporate insolvency resolution process, that is one normal process. There can be some fast-track corporate insolvency resolution process. But the normal process also has its time limit. It has to be finished within a particular period of time. But fast track has certain shortcuts. The process of resolution liquidation can be initiated by any one of or all of the below entities. In initiation by a financial creditor, initiation by an operational creditor, initiation by a corporate applicant. Go Fast airline, the airline which was referred to IBR some time back. I think the process is still on. But there the company itself referred itself to IBR. Then NCLT sat down, examined the case. They found that the proposal given by the company for making itself available for resolution was acceptable. So then the resolution process started. So that also is possible in this IBR code. Upon admission of the application by a financial creditor, operational creditor, a moratorium is declared on the continuation and initiation of all legal proceeding against the debtor, and an interim resolution professional is appointed by NCLT within 14 days from the insolvency commencement date. Now, the NCLT is the first body to accept whether a case is fit to be considered under IBR. Now, suppose NCLT gives an order that it is fit to be considered under IBR, then an interim resolution professional has to be appointed within 14 days of the admission of the case by NCLT. And once the case is admitted under IBR, no one involved in that company, operation of the company, any loaner or any debtor or anyone, cannot initiate any other legal case within that time till the process is under IBR code. If the IBR code resolution is over, then you can, after that you can go to NCLT or you can go to Supreme Court. But you cannot bring in something in between. Insolvency resolution process, which is required to be completed within 180 days of the application being admitted, extendable by a maximum period of 90 days in case of delay. So 9 months is the outer limit. And the IPR or RP is responsible for this timeline. And then during the continuation of the moratorium, the debtor is not permitted to alienate, encumber, or sell any asset with the approval of the Committee of Creditors. Committee of Creditors is formed under IBR code once the LCLT text. Committee of Creditor is the committee where all the people who have given loan to that company are represented, and that is coordinated by RP or IRP. Now IRP gets replaced by the RP, because IRP is immediately the person will take over. Within that time, suppose this IRP is free or can take, then he will be given RP status, or someone else can be appointed as an RP. The RP becomes the manager of the whole company. A single person becomes the manager of the whole company. During IVR code, generally, if suppose the company which is referred to IBR is operating well, though it is making loss, but it is still doing business, then under IBR also it can continue doing business, but all the decisions have to be taken by approval of the RP. The board, etc., will have no power. Once IRP appointed, board of directors is suspended and management vests with IRP. IRP are required to conduct the insolvency resolution process, take over the assets and management of a company, assist creditors in collecting information, and manage the insolvency resolution process. The term of the IRP is to continue until RP is appointed under Section 20. But generally, major work starts after the IRP, after the RP is appointed. IRP, what he does, he wants immediately he takes over and tries to set things right so that the process can move smoothly. RP appointed by the NCLT would constitute a committee of creditors comprising of the financial creditors of the corporate debtors. A decision of the committee of creditors would require to be approved by a minimum 51% of voting shares of the financial creditors. What they decide? They will decide the resolution plan, which will be put up after the tender is opened and all that. RP will put up the proposal. The creditors will sit down, and if 51% of the votes are for the proposal, then the resolution proposal is accepted. For certain key decision of the committee of creditors, including appointment of the resolution professional, approval of the resolution plan, and increasing the time limit for insolvency resolution process, the voting threshold is fixed at 66%. Now, suppose for some reason the RP is changed, or from IRP to RP, IRP appointment doesn't require the approval of the committee of creditors, but RP appointment under Section 22 requires the approval of committee creditors. There were 2/3 of the creditors have to approve the resolution professional. Then the final resolution plan or the resolution plan has to be approved by 2/3 of the creditors. Increasing the time limit of the insolvency resolution process from 180 days to 90 days, or suppose in extraordinary case beyond 90 days, all that will require 2/3 majority of the creditors. Next is business responsibility report. Madam, one of the madam was asking about how to write that, the question, the assignment. You can also take something from these slides of module 4, but basically that will be module 5, but you can take something from here also.
Yes, sir, got your point.
Business responsibility report. BRR is a disclosure of adoption of responsible business practices by a listed company. Actually, a top 1,000 companies by market capitalization to all its stakeholders. Why? Because this top 1,000 company really represent majority of our industry. So you need not bother about other smaller companies. If the big companies do compliance, then things will be in place. At a time and age when enterprises are increasingly seen as critical components of social system, they are accountable not merely to their shareholders from a revenue and profitability perspective, but also to the larger society, which is also its stakeholder. As per clause F of sub regulation 2 of Regulation 35 of listing agreement regulations. LODR we have read. I don't remember. Maybe. Listing agreement we have read. It was a part of that Indian CG, corporate governance. So like in listing agreement, this is there. This is a mandatory thing. The annual report shall contain a BRR describing the initiatives taken by the listed entity from an environmental, social, and governance perspective in the prescribed format. Actually, when BRR reporting started, no, people started reporting in sketchy way. So then government came out with a format. Actually, now after the new company law 2013, which has been amended time and again, even in 2020, it has been made that various how to write also has been prescribed in a form, in a way like, you know, there are restrictions like you have to explain in plain English. You have to explain in a way that general people can understand. All that has been written in the law to make it simpler and understandable by a simple investor. BRR framework is divided into 5 sections. Section A, general information about the organization you have to give. Then second is financial details of organization. Section C, other details. What are the initiatives you are taking at subsidiaries and supply chain partners. Then BR information, structure, governance, and policies of business responsibility. How you are ensuring business responsibility in your company. Section E, principle-wise performance. Indicators to assess performance on the business responsibility principles as envisaged by national voluntary guidelines. There is a NVG, which indicates that what are the principles based on which the BRR has to be carried out. So on each principle, you have given an explanation or performance. Next is class action. This will ensure action against a company by the shareholders. This is a special provision in the law. This is very effective or for a collective shareholders to take action against the company. This has been this has been used in US and Europe to in a very effective way to give justice to the small shareholders. The class represented in a class action lawsuit might consist of groups such as employees, consumers, investors, or patients. Lawsuits are designated or certified by the court with jurisdiction as class action if they meet certain criteria spelled out in the law. Being certified as a class can enable litigation to proceed more expeditiously and cost effectively, particularly in case pursued against large corporations. Because, you know, large corporations can bring in the best lawyer, spend a large amount of money, which cannot be matched by the individual shareholders. So that is why a group of shareholders cannot match that expenses. So that is why this class action is given. Because they reduce the cost of legal pursuit, class action may provide the only means for some individual claimants to pursue their case. Individuals may also have a greater chance of successfully pursuing their claims against a defendant or defendants, even when represented in a class. Members may, now suppose you have filed a case and the government, the court has allowed it to be considered as a class action. Once it doesn't mean that a person who has entered that group, which has filed the case under class action, cannot get out. He can also get out at a time when he feels like getting out. If he sees nothing is happening, he may not remain in the group. He can take his own action. Successful class action cases often result in hefty pre-trial settlement. What happens is, you know, in US and in Europe, once the case gets admitted as a class action law case, then the corporate generally tries to avoid lengthy legal procedures, or they do not generally try to pursue that case further or for longer, and try to get a settlement out of court. And there again, this also saves the efforts of the group. Now, in Enron case, there was a case law, class action case against Enron by its shareholders, which resulted in 7.2 billion settlement, again out of court settlement by the promoters. Another famous class action was the product liability case filed against Toyota for faulty brakes. It resulted in a costly recall and a 1 billion settlement for the buyer. The next thing we are reading is SEBI. SEBI was established on 1988. But you know, the real SEBI or the SEBI which we are seeing today came after a separate legislation was brought by Government of India in 1992 after the Harshad Mehta scam. This is an act of parliament which gives SEBI a autonomous status. SEBI remains as an independent body, not under Government of India. Though the chairman is appointed by Government of India, but its day-to-day operations cannot be controlled by Ministry of Finance or anyone. The Act also fulfilled the requirement of Financial Services Assessment Program developed by World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Actually, during 1991, if you people remember, when Manmohan Singh became Finance Minister, India was going through a debt crisis. We were like Sri Lanka and Pakistan, not as bad as that, but we were not in a very good shape. There was no foreign exchange reserve for repayment of loan for even 15 days or something like that, or 20 days or something like that. At that time, Government of India mortgaged some of the gold to take some loan, and those golds were again, some years back, they were brought back. But that was the time when we approached World Bank and IMF for reconstruction of, restructuring of their loan and all. So they wanted this act to be done because secondary market has collapsed because of the wrongdoings of Harshad Mehta and his group. Group means group of people, not his company. So SEBI Act also made India compliant to these programs. So SEBI has been controlling, and they have tremendous power over the stock exchange. They can stop anyone from trading. They have power over the mutual fund. They have power over the traders, the agents. They have power over the browsers. They have power over the underwriters. They have power over anyone who is involved in any way on securities like share or debenture or whatever which is tradable. SEBI may terminate from the securities list any company that does not comply with its governance standards and regulations. And SEBI can stop even trading on somebody's share for a day, two, something like that, if they feel something wrong is going on. And they have tremendous power, overruling power. But I am surprised in Baiju's case, how things have gone wrong. I am not very sure. And similarly, in Adani's case, what was the resolution? It is not that SEBI preliminary report says that things were done as per, but it's also a case where money has been siphoned from somewhere and has come back to India. So SEBI now has to look into such things. I'm not saying Adani is the only one company. Many companies may have done that, but we have, as a nation, we have to see that. SEBI also establishes rules for brokers and underwriters, stockbrokers, sub-brokers, share transfer agents, banker to an issue, trustee of trust deed. Like suppose you are giving some I'm talking about the trust means some trust which is involved in issue of some debenture or some financial instruments can also be covered under SEBI. Registrar to an issue, merchant bankers, underwriter, portfolio managers, investment advisors, all of them are under this purview of SEBI, who may be associated with security markets, say buy, sell or deal in securities only in accordance with the SEBI rule. Depository participant, custodian of securities, foreign institutional investors, any FII or FPI can only invest in India if they are registered with SEBI. Without registration with SEBI, they cannot do. SEBI can also control the merger acquisition process of companies. The reason for control is to see if the process will harm the market and investors or not. There is another commission in India, which is Competition Commission of India, which is also whose approval is required for any merger and acquisition to be successfully done. You can't apply for merger and acquisition unless you are cleared by CCI. So SEBI also can stop if CCI clearance is not there, can stop a merger or acquisition. The Competition Commission of India ensures that we don't create companies or behemoths which can promote monopolization. We want fair competition in the market so that efficiency remains in the process. SEBI can bar any broker, companies, or underwriters from the stock business if they find any irregularities. In consultation with ICAI, SEBI tries to bring in transparency in auditing process and also checks the auditors. ICAI is the Institute of Chartered
Chartered
Accountants.
accountant.
So accounting standard is fixed by them. So SEBI can influence ICAI to change accounting standard if they find that certain things are not really getting reflected in the documents. Now, last part of the slide here, this module is corporation in global society. Why are we reading this topic? Can somebody throw some light? Why this topic is relevant today in corporate governance matters? Anyone remembers when we read about the corporate governance structures of countries, Japan, Germany, US? Any idea? We have read that, but at that time, in those slides, if you remember, I have said that the corporate governance structure of those countries have evolved because of the peculiar situation of their own country. But things are changing now. You know, when in Japan, when the business in the houses or the corporations were only operating in Japan, the corporate governance structure of Japan was applicable to them. Now, such houses have gone out of Japan and established companies, factories, offices everywhere else in the world. Now, when they come to US, they have to follow US corporate governance structure. When they come to India, they have to follow Indian corporate governance structure. The financing has to be as per Indian law. The financing in US has to be as per US law. Whatever investment as a company they are bringing in, that is okay. But if they want to take a loan, they can only take a loan from a bank or whatever, but the bank or a financial institution will not be allowed to be a part of the board, which was otherwise possible in Japan. So with this advent of globalization, where everyone is dependent on the world as a market or as an investor or for its operations, there the limitations of a particular law of a particular country cannot now only guide the corporate governance structure of that company. The company has now to be oriented or has to plan corporate governance structure in such a way that it can cater to the needs of various countries. Now, suppose in Japan, the CSR requirement is one, in India, it is another, in US, it is another. So you have to have a policy which will suit these operations. So, so overall, what is happening is bigger corporations which are having multi-location, multi-nation operation and business are adopting themselves to the global standards. Means they are not only guided by their country's law, but they are trying to meet or go beyond that so that they appear to be a globally operating company. So that is why the title is corporation as in global society. Now every country is your place. Now see, I don't know if you remember, Infosys sometime back had to pay a big amount of money in a case where one of its employee in US, a US citizen, brought in a complaint of sexual harassment against the company or the manager. In India till now, there may be cases, but there has been no legal complication in such matter till now. So maybe, when I'm just saying, there is no basis there is no report or something, but I'm only speculating that maybe because Infosys has been operating as an Indian company for so long, when they went into business in US, when they established office, because after Donald Trump came and before that also, they found it is more beneficial to have an office in US tax-wise and other than to operate as a US company or as a US company which is a subsidiary of Indian Infosys, or then to operate as a foreign office for Indian company. So the laws were little difficult and all. But maybe there are managers who are accustomed to Indian way of operating, were somewhere in trouble while dealing with UK or USA workers. So this really do happen. I know a case where, in China, suppose you have a plant in China, you work in China, you have a manufacturing facility in China, the workers there are more skilled, more aware, and they really do not want the manager to be there monitoring them every hour, half an hour, like we do in India. We try to check everything because we know that there is a possibility that if you are not allowed, the worker may cheat and go, and you have very little option to ensure that. But in China, the workers have their own ethics and the way of doing things. So you give them a target, and at the end of the day, they would give you back. That is why their economy is so good, and they have become the manufacturing hub. So there are certain peculiarities of every country, good things, bad things, whatever. So, so adopting into various circumstances has become a challenge for companies. Now, we know that there is a World Trade Organization, WTO, and this WTO controls your taxation and others. You can't really, if you are a member of WTO, you can't really do whatever you feel like, or for import restriction. Or Subhasmita, madam, please switch off your mic. If you have a question, okay, otherwise switch off your mic. So under WTO, you can't unilaterally do something to discourage import and do something to encourage import. You have areas, because this negotiation under WTO is going on, but general guidelines are there. So you have to follow that. Global business operate in a borderless society and have considerable power to affect change. This is also diminishing the direct role of nation states. In the fast changing scenario, there is an urgent need for a sustained dialogue, initially among senior business leaders from around the world, to define the critical role of a corporation in a global society. 37 of the world's largest economies are corporations. This means what? We are talking of India becoming the 5th or 3rd largest economy. So if you go into 30, 40, you find that there are countries which are earning less than the turnover of various corporations. So this statement says that. So there are corporations which are earning far more than a country. So they are, they have to be guided or made into a proper way. Otherwise, the whole political scenario will change. And that is happening in many countries also. With just a few corporations comprising most of world's economic activity, it has become easier to keep a check on them and to hold them accountable for their effects on society. Corporations are under pressure to be responsible for their impact on environment and society. Today, no country can claim to be economically self-sufficient Even India, with its vast human and natural resources, cannot insulate herself from the world economy in spite of tremendous political opposition. Most business enterprise, big or small, are drawn to conduct business across national borders by way of purchasing raw materials, assembling products and components made in several countries, selling finished goods or services to customers in other nations. In our day-to-day life, we consume goods and services that have an international character about them, clothes, books, CDs, computers. And in India, all of us are so much of dependent on China. Even during Durga Puja or any decoration, you get the decorative things are also from China. You get idols from in China. You get toys from China. So that is how we cannot just insulate ourselves from there. Many MNCs have subsidiaries, affiliates, and joint venture partners in most of the developing countries. In some cases, the number of foreign employees of corporations may exceed that of home country. This is true. Now, I will give some examples of some international cases where the company was operating in a different way, but then the opposition worldwide brought it into a different state. 1995, UK government and Shell company. They had a offshore platform, Brent Spar, called the Brent Spar, which was to be disposed of because it was now its longevity was over. So what the company decided, government and company together decided that the cost of disposing otherwise will be difficult, so they will sink it to the sea. And that was being done. In those days, many things were dumped in sea. But Greenpeace organization, I don't know if any one of you are aware, but Greenpeace is a worldwide environmental organization, which was after this last time also in certain cases, they were very proactive in India, which the government thought that going against our policy. So Greenpeace have been controlled by government of India in some way, but they are operative in others. So Greenpeace, they opposed that movement. And finally, Brent Spar was not disposed of in the sea. So company has to incur extra cost in disposing of. So similarly, Shell company also got involved in Nigeria, where execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 other Ogini activities in Nigeria. Because there they said that they have influenced the government in execution of these persons. So then when Shell was operating in Nigeria, because Nigeria has a lot of oil. Out of that, there was cases and it went on so long. And in 2009, Shell has to agree for out-of-court settlement of US dollar 15.5 million to the victim's family because the international pressure was so much. And by these things, Shell lost a lot of in brand value. And for that, they have to again invest to bring that brand value back. So then they have to again go through. So to erase that bad memory, they have to go a lot of things. They have to spend on the CSR and all that. So the world economy is influencing every corporation. And now the corporations have to behave as a global citizen, not as a company which is rooted in one country. This also has led to setting up an organization like the Corporation in Global Society, the Stream and Research Group, CGS. These groups seek to promote interdisciplinary research and dialogue among scholars, policymakers, and advocates interested in the corporation as an institutional form and social, political, and economic significance on par the state and family. So now these people are helping the society and the corporations to understand the impact and guide them in becoming a global citizen. With this, we have come to an end of module 4. This I will share with Rasmi Madam today or tomorrow. And I think next 2 classes are on 7th and 10th or something like that. Anyone is aware? So whatever the next 2 classes, one is in the morning That will be on 7th, and next I think on 10th or something. So in that we will finish module 5 and we'll close. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.